The Second Son series, Part 4. The Mystery of the Primeval Sun. Wait, who was behind that census? In the chthonic black sun connection in Isaiah 14. I'm Bled Scry. Please like and subscribe. In Part 1 of this series, I talked about the book The Saturn Myth and David N. Talbot's theory that Saturn was our primeval sun in ancient days. How long ago Saturn was much closer to the Earth and was fixed in our north sky, with it acting as a second sun after sunset, illuminating the night sky in a radiant purple light. After some cosmic event, that all changed to our current sky situation and left us with the only sun we now know. Messiah's words to the Pharisees: "Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it." John 8:44. Is the father devil Messiah is mentioning here, in fact, Saturn, the primeval sun? In Part 2 of this series, we touched on this information, but I wanted to go back over it now as we continue to build on it. Is the Egyptian god Set another form of Saturn? Set was a trickster god, a god of foreigners, lord of the desert, chaos and storms, associated with mountains, the underworld. He had red hair and black skin, symbolizing his duality. He was also associated with serpents, like Ra and Kronos. Bible verses. The Lord speaks to Moses through the burning bush on a mountain. Exodus 3, 1-12. The Lord loves foreigners. Deuteronomy 10, 17-19. The Lord led them through the desert with a pillar of cloud during the day and a pillar of fire at night. Exodus 13, 21-22. The Lord called Moses to the top of the mountain to receive the commandments. Exodus 19, 3-23. And there's two accounts of the staff being turned into a serpent, both Moses's and Aaron's, in Exodus 4, 2-5, and Exodus 7, 10-12. So I've color-coded these, so hopefully you can see the pattern that I'm seeing. The trickster god Set was a god of chaos and storms. In the Exodus, chaos rained down on the Egyptians. "And all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beast." Exodus 11:5. So even the children of the servants of the Egyptians and the animals were punished during the horrible plagues of chaos. Was slaughtering those children and the animals necessary to punish the Egyptians? This sounds like overkill to me. Set on the mountaintop? And Moses said unto the Lord, "The people cannot come up to the Mount Sinai, for thou chargest us, saying, Set bounds about the mount, and sanctify it." Exodus 19:23. Was the Egyptian god Set on the mountaintop walking around? In Strong's Concordance, the Hebrew word used for set bounds was Hêlēl in verse 23. This is the only time I found that word used. Gabel was used in Exodus 19:12 as the verb for setting boundaries, and in that verse the people were warned that they would be killed for going near the mountain. There are more verbs that could have been used for setting the boundaries in verse 23. I find it weird that this was the only time this word was used for it. Could this Hêlēl have been a proper name instead? Bel, the Canaanite Phoenician god of storms and war. Bel was originally known as Hadad. Hadad Bel. Hag-Bel, used in Exodus 19:23. Hadad Bel, Hag-Bel. In Old English, Bel and Lord were used interchangeably. So if you were going to call someone Lord Harrington, you could have said Bale Harrington instead. They were used interchangeably. Bel was also known as a fertility god, like Kronos or Saturn. So was Hagbel meant to be a proper name referring to Baal, and when it was translated to English, Set was sneakily introduced because they are the same deity, Saturn. Why was Hagbel used in Exodus 19:23 instead of the verb gobble? The Egyptians associated Bel with Set. Remember, Amos 5:25-26 seems to support this theory. When I first noticed these verses many years ago, I believed that the Lord was rebuking the Israelites for being tricked to follow Saturn in the desert. But another possibility is that the Lord of the Old Testament had grown weary of his followers at this time and was simply recounting and bragging about his deeds while using some of his other aliases. Did you bring me sacrifices and offerings 40 years in the wilderness, O house of Israel? You have taken along Sakkuth your king, and Kawan your star god, the idols you made for yourselves. Further evidence for this case I am building can be found in 1 Chronicles 21:1. So in 2 Samuel and 1 Chronicles, two different accounts exist of the same story, with some very interesting differences. Wait, who was behind the census of the Israelites? And again the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel, and he moved David against them to say, Go, number Israel and Judah. 2 Samuel 24:1. And Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. 1 Chronicles 21:1. In the Chronicles account, Joab questioned this order passed down from David and then did not count everyone. But Levi and Benjamin counted he not among them, for the king's word was abominable to Joab, and God was displeased with this thing. Therefore he smote Israel. 1 Chronicles 21:6-7. So in the Chronicles account, it says that Joab questioned this order and then did not deliver an accurate count, so this was what angered the Lord. And in the 2 Samuel account, it doesn't mention a miscount at all, and instead gives more details of it taking over 9 months to complete the census. And in verse 10 it says that David's heart smote him after hearing the census total. In both accounts, the Lord ended up striking 70,000 down with the plague, and it took burnt offerings to quench the thirst of the Lord, so he would end the chaos. Chronicles does place this account after a great victory of the Philistines, so the sin that made the Lord so mad is explained in some commentaries to be the pride of David and self-reliance. But in Chronicles, the story puts the fault at Joab's miscount, not the pride of David. I've also seen commentaries try to explain this mass slaughter as the Lord trying to weed out traitors. But what if David's heart was smote because he realized what Joab was trying to do to protect the people with the miscount? In both accounts, David questions the Lord of why the people were punished, but no explanation is given in the scriptures themselves. In Chronicles, after the sacrifices, David, out of fear of death, is too scared to enter the tabernacle to speak with the Lord further. It is important to note that in both accounts, Satan is only mentioned in place of the Lord in 1 Chronicles 21:1. So the commentaries provided conjecture to make sense of these accounts. Was Joab trying to protect the people by leaving some of the tribes out of the census count because he could see this was an unpassable test from a fickle God bent on destruction? In the Chronicle account, the Lord killed 70,000 people with the plague because of a miscount by Joab, not anything to do with David. 70,000 people. And if the Lord did send Satan to provoke the census, then why is Satan only mentioned once? And why does it not say that the Lord sent Satan? It says Satan stood up and provoked David. I propose that these differing accounts are just a case of different aliases being used, just like in Amos 5:26. Another alias was used between the accounts, and religion has shaped the identity and view to fit their understanding of the story. I've seen in the Talmud and some Jewish and Islamic folk legends where Satan is compared with the angel of death that carried out the order of plague, so that could be an explanation. But it also could be just another title or side of the same being. What if the God of the Old Testament is Satan? The early Christian theologian Marcion of Sinope believed that the true God who sent Messiah was distinct from the vengeful creator God of the Old Testament. For the next puzzle piece, we have to travel to the ancient Syrian city of Ugarit. Ugarit was an ancient city lying in a large artificial mound called Ras Shamra. Ras Shamra could be a reference to the primeval sun Saturn by way of Ra in the Mesopotamian Shamash. Ra Shamash, Ras Shamra. Remember how the ancient days started at sunset. Sun, set. Night was considered day to the ancients, with the awesome purple glow of Saturn illuminating the night sky much brighter than the night sky we know today. Hêlēl ben-šāḥar was talking about the chthonic or black sun. The Ugaritic conception of the chthonic sun is a theory that Isaiah chapter 14 was influenced by the ancient Ugaritic poems, and the phrase Hêlēl ben-šāḥar is actually a metonym for the sun itself. Hêlēl ben-šāḥar is the Hebrew phrase translated to shining one, son of the dawn, which became the English name Lucifer from the Latin translation. In Ugaritic mythology, Athtar was a god of the day star or morning star and thought to be associated with the planet Venus. He was also known as the terrible, awesome one or the lion. Athtar was also known to be the god of the desert and storms, just like Set. The day star was Saturn, the primeval sun. I believe Athtar is associated with Venus by mistake of people forgetting the golden age of Saturn as the primeval sun in the night sky. Please watch part 1 of this series if you haven't, as we have already covered this concept in more depth with quotes from the Saturn myth by David N. Talbot. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. Isaiah 14:12-15. Remember, in the Saturn myth, Talbot proposed that Saturn was in the North sky. Hêlēl ben-šāḥar is referring to the ancient day star, the black sun, Saturn. How you are fallen from heaven, O day star, son of the dawn. How you are cut down to the ground, you who laid the nations low. Isaiah 14:12, ESV. What a come down this, O Babylon, day star, son of dawn. Flat on your face in the underworld mud, you famous for flattening nations. MSG translation. Other black sun connections. Suri, revered by the Italic peoples, was a chthonic solar deity, later Latinized as Cernunnos. He was known as the volcanic fire god, embodying both light and darkness, ruling over the sun and the underworld with dominion over health and plague. Additionally, as the god of volcanic lightning, he was recognized among the Novancils, the 9 Etruscan thunder gods. Suri's sacred animals were wolves and goats. These animals should bring to mind their connection with Satan. Also, when I saw Cernunnos, I thought of Tolkien's Sauron, the evil eye in the sky-high tower. And another connection of the Black Sun exists in Herbert's Dune universe. The House Harkonnen world of Gedi Prime has a Black Sun. House Harkonnen's initials are HH, or 88 in simple gematria. The Nazi Party used the ancient swastika symbol. I believe this is another ancient Black Sun symbol. They also use the phrase Heil Hitler, HH, or 88 again. 88 is believed to be a numbered representation of the cross swastika, 3 times cranked. Just another connection for thought. I may do a future video getting into that symbol more, because there's a lot to discuss there. Speaking of Cernunnos and volcanoes, a mysterious chthonic black sun god was also worshipped by cults in Pompeii. In the book below, Torelli uncovers a web of cultic connections among the deities venerated at these temples. From this exploration emerges a compelling yet unsettling figure, a chthonic black sun god manifesting in diverse forms within these sanctuaries. It's from a book covering some of the discoveries from the Pompeii excavations. Another portion of the puzzle has been put together. Saturn, the primeval sun, was also known as the Black Sun. Was the early Christian theologian Marcion correct in his belief that the creator God of the Old Testament was a different God altogether than the true God who sent Messiah? In part 5 of this series, we will continue to look at more scriptures with possible Saturn connections. I'm Bled Scry. Please like and subscribe, and join me as we continue to explore this great mystery. Thanks for watching.